You got one up on me still, someday maybe. Actually, I don't know if you've experienced it, but Mallorca, I found out, was darn near a German colony.
It's full of German and English tourists.
Yeah,
They love it there. And it's cheap and close and easy to get to.
yeah.
Good. I'm glad to know where it is. I have tuned into this TV program called the Mallorca Files.
Well, if you just look at where Barcelona is and
Yeah.
draw a line southeast for about 60 miles, you'll see a whole series of islands out there.
All right, good.
And will you be talking about slingshots? How good they are with slingshots in the Balearic Islands?
That I am not familiar with.
Oh, yeah, I guess that they're sort of a fad, but I guess a whole bunch of guys that are really good at using the slingshot, the kind that you whirl around. And of course, they co-opted them to try to simulate with David shooting, of David killing Goliath, and if that was possible and so forth. So that's where I got the information. But now, Kristen, what about the language they speak there?
Well, it's Mallorquin, but everybody speaks Castilian Spanish as well.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, all the locals are going to speak in Mallorquin, but if let's say you go into a store or something, they can immediately switch into Castilian, and a lot of people speak English there too.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, people are beginning to sign on. Let's give another minute or two here, and then we'll begin. Okay. We didn't meet last week, so I hope that didn't encourage people to not sign in or discourage them from signing in. All right. Good. Yep, there we go. Okay. All right. Well, Barbara has a little signing in she has to do for her son. So let's begin. I'm delighted to introduce Rob Rice to you. He has a 50-year sailing life, has been sailing for 50 years around the globe, and he's sailed in places that include the Mediterranean, the Caribbean, the Virgin Islands, the Balearic Islands off the coast of Spain, the Hawaiian Islands, the Channel Islands, the Apostle Islands he's going to tell us about today, and Puget Sound, the San Juan Islands, and in some of the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan and Lake Superior. And then also along the Pacific coast of California, Mexico, and Central America, South America, Africa, Europe, and Canada. Wow. And then Rob captained a 44-foot sailboat on a transatlantic crossing, part of a 13,500 nautical mile journey from Los Angeles to Greece. Rob holds a 100-ton Coast Guard captain's license, and he grew up in Milwaukee. He is a veteran of the United States Air Force and attended the University of Hawaii. He's recently retired from a 35-year career in public affairs and political campaign management. And he now has come to live in Goleta. So we're delighted that you are living in this area, Rob, and we're delighted to have you tell us about this best kept secret. We're all ears, and the mic is yours.
Thank you, and thank you for all of you that joined us today. I want to start out by just posing a question, and that is, why would a California sailor want to go sailing in the Great Lakes? Well, the answer is simple. It's to enjoy North America's best kept secret, and that's the Apostle Islands. The Apostle Islands are located in the southwest area of Lake Superior. And I'm sure most of you know that Lake Superior is the largest freshwater body on the planet. It encompasses 31,700 square miles, which is greater than Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and even Massachusetts combined.
Wow.
Oh, went too fast. Unfortunately, mariners believe that Lake Superior is rough and tumble sailing and boating year round. And that's unfortunately a total misconception. From late May to mid-September, the western end of the lake, which you can see on the slide here, is the narrowest part of the lake. And it's really, in that time, over the summer months, it's just an absolute boater's paradise. I'm going to put the cursor on the screen here just to show you. Here are the Apostle Islands sitting off the northeast tip of Wisconsin between Minnesota and the upper peninsula of Michigan. In the summer month, the winds are moderate up there in the southwest end, and the sailing is just excellent. And again, I'm talking about the southwest part of the lake, not the open and northern parts of Lake Superior. The Apostle Islands just have this unspoiled beauty. Most of the sailing areas in the Apostle Islands have sandy bottoms for just perfect anchoring. And it quite frankly is when you get there, you go, oh my gosh, this is like a dream come true. Now, unlike the Hawaiian Islands, and for example, even right here in the Central Coast and Southern California, there are no prevailing wind patterns. The wind changes frequently, and boaters must monitor the weather predictions for which way the weather is going to come. It doesn't change that much during a given day, but it will change over a 24-hour period. Now, choosing a good anchorage really depends on what the predicted wind is. And I have to tell you, I'll give you a little piece of advice here, and that is don't go to bed until you've checked the latest weather report for the weather and wind predictions, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in this presentation. There are no tides and there are no ground swells in the Great Lakes. The only waves that are generated are by the wind, which means you can anchor pretty close to shore, and the closer you get to shore, the warmer the water is. Now, again, that's going to be dictated by how much your vessel, the draft of your vessel is. Although there can be fog year-round on Lake Superior, in the summer it's not very prevalent. Nowadays, with chart plotters and radar, sailing in fog is really not that difficult anymore. If you're not in the shipping lanes, which the Apostle Islands are not, you don't even need radar. 3 years ago, my sailing buddies and I sailed for about 20 miles in heavy fog through the islands, and we had no problems because we had a chart plotter. And my sailing buddies and I we just absolutely love chart plotters. They've just changed the whole game. In the middle of summer and the months there, Lake Superior's water temperature is approximately in the 60-degree range, but it's a lot warmer than that when you get into shallower water. And visitors come there just to hang out or go sailing or swimming or paddle boarding, or kayaking is very popular, and snorkeling and even scuba diving, or just go hang out at the beach. There's one important factor to keep in mind when you go to Lake Superior, and that is there's nothing in Lake Superior that's going to eat you.
That's good.
You will need a wetsuit if you want to go snorkeling or scuba diving in these really unique sea caves and shoreline areas, and including shipwrecks. You know, it's always puzzled me why they call them sea caves and not lake caves, but I don't know the answer to that. An added treat for a saltwater sailor like me is just the abundance of clean, fresh water for bathing and washing and cleaning. And I have to tell you, I have no reservations of drinking water right out of Lake Superior in certain parts of the lakes. And the lake is kept that way because they do not allow you to pump waste overboard. In fact, it's illegal to have a through hull valve in the Great Lakes. Okay, so let's talk specifically about the Apostle Islands. The first thing that comes to mind are they named after the apostles? And the answer to that is no, as I will walk you through them in a minute here. They were discovered, quote unquote, by a French Jesuit priest in 1744, and at that time they named new discoveries after religious figures. The Apostle Islands are located about 47 degrees north latitude, and that's about the same as the San Juan Islands up in Washington state. The Apostle Islands chains consists of 22 islands, although one of them is really not much of an island. So I just want to warn you now that there's going to be a quiz at the end of this presentation, so you better pay attention. Here we go. Here are the 22 islands. I'm going to bring my cursor back up on the screen. This is Madeline Island. All the islands that you see on the screen now have the white background. And this is Madeline Island. It's the largest island. Stockton Island, second largest. Outer Island, third largest. And then you have here the North Twin Island, Cat, Ironwood, Manitou. Whoops, let's see here. What happened to you? Let's get back here. Manitou, Oak, Basswood. I'm going to go back up here. There's Otter, Rocky, Devil's Island, and Bear Island, Raspberry, York Island, Sand Island, and Eagle Island. And over here, not to be forgotten, are Michigan Island and Gull Island. So there you go. Those are the 22 islands that make up the Apostle Island chain. The islands are all rich in history with stories of freshwater pirates and haunted lighthouses and shipwrecks, and probably the world's smallest island. The first time you sail into the Apostle Islands, it's easy to get confused. The islands are all covered with tall trees, and some are just a few miles apart, and it's easy to confuse one island with another. And that's exactly what happened to me the first time I went there. All but one of the islands are uninhabited. And all but one of these 22 islands, there's only one that's not part of the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore. Each island has its own identity and charm, and there are lighthouses on several of the islands. Visiting the lighthouse is really a treat. It's really a hoot. They all have their own stories and tales of heroism and tragedy, and they've been there now way over 100 and some years. Wow. The Apostle Islands had a very substantial logging operations for many years, and at the turn of the 20th century, there was quite a bit of commercial fishing activity in the area. By the way, there are 88 species of fish in Lake Superior currently. In the 1800s and well into the 1900s, several of the islands had people living in summer cottages that they built. And once the federal government created the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore, the federal government canceled and terminated all the ground leases on these cabins, and the residents had to vacate them in summer and then tear them down and remove them. Deep inside of Stockton Island, which is the second largest island in the chain, there are remnants of an old stone quarry that operated up until about 1890. There are numerous shipwrecks that are in really extremely good condition because of the cold, fresh water, and many of them are in shallow water. That sank Red Cliff Point between the point and Basswood Island in the Apostle Islands. Now, there are reported to be over 350 shipwrecks in Lake Superior, but that number I think is quite dwarfed if you start counting in all the different types of vessels that sank out there. But one thing, if you're a scuba diver, it's just a paradise because there's such a great shape, shallow water, and just artifacts galore. And there are a lot of people that come up there to just dive for these wrecks in different locations. And there are books and maps of where to find these shipwrecks. Before you undertake a cruise in the Apostle Islands, it's really important to have a few nuances that you understand. And the first one is that the soundings on the Great Lakes chart are in feet and not fathoms. The other two things to be aware of and wary of are gill nets and pond nets. Gill nets are nets that are attached out floating to floating buoys and normally don't present much of a problem because the nets are pretty far down under the surface between the buoys. But the pond nets are a different story. I'm going to move my cursor back on the screen here. These are the poles holding up the nets. This is mostly from the indigenous Chippewa tribe that still use pond nets. You'll notice that there are cables here, hard to see, holding up this structure. This is the offshore side, and this is the shore side. And the important thing here is to give those a wide berth and do not pass between the pond net and shore because there will be cables from shore holding up that side of the pond net. But a strange thing happened to me when I was there the last time, about 3 years ago. I didn't see any pond nets, and I don't know why. And quite frankly, I don't know if they're still using pond nets because that's the first time ever that I didn't see pond nets in the entire Apostle Island chain. The equally important is to look at the charts carefully for the soundings near the islands and around the shores of the islands, because some of them have very large sand spits or sandbars that protrude way out into the water. And an example of that is you can be sitting there watching your depth sounder while you're sailing on the southern end of Cat Island, and you'll watch that depth meter jump from 175 feet up to 18 feet. And boy, does that get your attention. Bareboat and captain charters are either out of Port Superior or Bayfield, Wisconsin, which are both on the northeast point of Wisconsin. Both are very active harbors, and they have charters and sailing instruction. What you're looking at here is the Bayfield Harbor, and that's where all the tour boats and ferry boats come and go. Just to the south of Bayfield, right there, just a couple miles south, is Port Superior, and it's called Port Superior. It's in Pikes Bay, but it has the largest selection of charter boats, and that's where we've been chartering out of for the last several years. It's my favorite charter operation, and they've got a really professional crew there. Well, you know, the Apostle Islands really are a sight to behold. I mean, they look like these giant green lily pads floating on the water, and they come in all different sizes and shapes. I think the most difficult choice a skipper has to make is to what tranquil bay, what island does he or her want to go to? Maybe just to visit it, or drop a lunch hook, or anchor for the night. Several of the islands have small wooden piers, which you can see in this photo, that you can tie up to, but that's all going to be depending on the depth at that pier. Most of the islands have these beautiful sandy beaches. I wanted to show you this chart of Stockton Island, which is the second largest island, and it's a very popular destination. The chart is oriented north and south, and it has got three gorgeous bays. Let me get my cursor in the right place here. On the west end of it, this is the South Shore, is Quarry Bay, Remember, we were talking about a deserted quarry operation. That's the side of the island it was on. On the eastern end over here is Julian Bay. And then in the middle is Prescott Isle Bay and that tiny little harbor down here on the very tip. These are all sand bays, beautiful place to go to. And I was sailing in here and on several occasions. And I remember we were there so far early in the 1970s, this little harbor wasn't even actually there. But it is just a spectacular place to go to. This is what the little harbor looks like from their stone break wall. That you can see the tour boat out here on the end. And when I had sailed into the bay on the eastern end called Julian Bay, was on the day of Harmonic Convergence Day. And that was many, many years ago. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I saw a double rainbow as we pulled in, and it was enough to convince me that this was one of the most beautiful bays I had ever sailed into. Stockton is so big, it has numerous hiking trails, and it'll let your crew get off the boat and go stretch their legs and go hiking after a day of sailing. Stockton is also the island with the largest number of black bears who are out and about and they're foraging for blueberries. But don't worry, you can scare them away by making a lot of noise. I had a little wooden spoon and my little metal blueberry pail, and I just banged the spoon on the pail and they just run away. But you know, picking blueberries, fresh blueberries for your breakfast pancakes can be a rather delicious endeavor. 3 summers ago, I chartered this 48-foot Jeanneau, and the first thing my sailing buddies and I did is head right to Prescott Isle Bay. You'll notice that this boat has a roller furling mainsail, and I think that my 2 sailing buddies and I are getting too old or too lazy to raise and lower mainsails. But take a look at this photo. Blue skies, tall trees on the island, beach, sandy beach, crystal blue water, tranquil bay. I mean, this is just the epitome of what the Apostle Islands are all about. Another favorite place is Raspberry Island. And Raspberry Island actually has a lighthouse that is the most visited lighthouse in the Apostle chain. The National Park Service restored the lighthouse and the grounds to make it look exactly like it did in the late 1800s. The lighthouse is reputed to be haunted by a shadowy figure that inhabits an upstairs closet. And I've been told by 5 separate rangers there that they've seen the shadowy figure. This is the chart of Raspberry Island, again, oriented north and south. I'm gonna bring the cursor onto the screen here. Down in this little promontory is where the lighthouse is, on the southeast corner. The anchorage right around the corner down here is considered one of the best anchorages in the Apostle Island. It's a good place to anchor, except if the wind's gonna come from the southwest, south, or southeast. If you look here on the chart, you can see the sounding line, there's 12 feet. There's 6 feet. And this is all sand around these islands. Most of the islands have sand all the way around. There's a few that do not. Now I'm gonna just divert a little bit from the Apostle Islands to talk about Raspberry Bay. This is not part of the Apostle chain, but it's immediately south of Raspberry Island, and it is so spectacular. I just wanted to tell you about it. It's due south of Raspberry Island. It's on the mainland of Wisconsin. It has a large, completely sandy bay, and you can see a huge sandy beach. We like to go in there as part of the trip and anchor in about 12 feet of water and jump of the islands again. And before I get into getting to Rocky Island, I just want to get the cursor here and show you. Here's Raspberry Island, and there is Raspberry Bay. And just to orient you again, there is Stockton Island, And this is an island we'll talk about a little bit later, Madeline Island. But another very popular place is called Rocky Island, right up here near the top. And it has considered one of the more protected anchorages. If you notice here, it has a little peninsula jutting out to the northeast. And then immediately to the east is South Twin Island. And then to the south are a whole bunch of islands. And so that's why it has great protection from many wind directions. Rocky Island was once one of the most popular islands to build a summer cottage. And when the National Park Service created the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore in September 1970, as I said earlier, all the cottages were removed and it is an uninhabited island. The dock in the background of this photo, that dock is still there. And I've been on that dock on numerous occasions, and I have to say, it has a reputation for some roaring parties. The northeastmost island in the chain is the formidable outer island. And what you're looking at here, again, oriented north and south, is the southern sandspit off of outer island. It offers great anchorage in either the east or west side. Again, there's all sand around here. And this is the largest sandspit in the island chain. But for me, my favorite spot is the seldom used northern bay on the north shore of outer island. However, you are completely exposed to the open lake all the way from east to west. And the only time you'd want to anchor overnight here is when you know the wind is going to be coming out of the southerly quadrant. Outer Island's lighthouse is the tallest lighthouse in the chain. And I have visited it on numerous occasions. And every time I go there, I just can't help but feel like, God, what a desolate place it must have felt like for the lighthouse keeper and his family. What you're looking at out here is the open lake looking north. And of course, this is where the most of the Lake Superior is. Off to the left, you can see one of the islands. But this is just, the view from here is spectacular. Now, if you're lucky, you can see the Aurora Borealis in the Apostle Islands. This photo was taken in the Apostle Islands. I've only seen it once, and it wasn't nearly as grand as the one that you see here in the picture. From this northernmost point on the north shore of Outer Island, you get an unobstructed view of the commercial traffic that are coming upbound to Duluth and Superior, and the downbound ships headed towards the St. Lawrence Seaway. On a very clear night, you can see the dim lights of Grand Marais, Minnesota, which is many, many miles to the north. By the way, I just wanted to share this with you because it's so unique. The international ships are called Salties, and the Great Lakes ships are called Lakers. As you can see, the Lakers have their bridge up on the bow of the vessel, where the Salties have their bridge and control in the aft of the vessel. And I'm sure some of you must know the infamous Edmund Fitzgerald story. The Apostle Islands is home to what may be the smallest island in the world. Gull Island is just north of Michigan Island, and it has a light on it, and that light is to tell commercial vessels headed for Ashland, Wisconsin, to stay away from Michigan Island, which is immediately south to it. But the fact of the matter is this tiny island is nothing but a pile of rocks that's barely 15 feet above the water. To the south and to the largest island is Madeline Island, and it's the only inhabited island. As you can see, it's got a yacht club and harbor open to the public. It's got a golf course, has Airbnbs, hotels, restaurants, and stores. The town is called La Pointe, and it has all these, it has year-round residents. It's the only island that has anybody living on it, and there's a whole bunch of people who live there all year round. In the dead of winter, you can drive your car across the frozen lake to get to Bayfield, Wisconsin, if you want to go shopping. Or somebody built a converted snowmobile, and you can run a ride on that one. It holds up to 6 people, and it'll take you across the frozen lake.
Hmm.
On Madeline Island's east shore, this is east and west, and appropriately named, it has the largest bay in the Apostle chain, and it's called Big Bay. I wanted to tell you about the time I spent a night there, and it was one of my worst nights of anchoring, and you know, I've been at this for over 50 years, so that's really saying something. And it taught me a good lesson, because it was like, you have to check the weather before you go to bed. And I'll explain a little bit later what I had to do, but at 1700 hours, the weather was forecast for light westerly, so the wind would be coming from left or right here. And by the way, I just want to point out, you can see several boats anchored on both sides of this bay, all sand bottom, just delightful place. And went to bed and woke up in the middle of the night, my boat's pounding into waves because of a thunderstorm that was approaching from the east. I wasn't too concerned that I was going to end up on the beach, because I was anchored in 10 feet and the bottom was all sand, and I had a lot of anchor road paid out. But I got to tell you, I didn't get much sleep that night. Again, I'm going to take a little detour here from the Apostle Islands and just tell you about a place that's just absolutely spectacular to go to, that's not in the island chain, but nearby. It's Black River Harbor, and it's in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And on several occasions, we have sailed over to this harbor. It's located in a state park, and it has waterfalls in it. I just want to tell you a quick side story here, though. When we get, when you look at some of the charter contracts, bareboat charter contracts, there's a limitation of 50 miles from your point of origin. Well, my sailing buddy sent it to his attorney. His attorney read the contract and said, well, the only problem with this contract is it doesn't state what the miles are. Is it 50 statute miles, or is it 50 nautical miles? Well, from that day on, it was 50 nautical miles for us. And that was great, because Black River is 48 nautical miles away. This is what it looks like when you get there. This is the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. You'll notice here, I'll put the cursor in there, the boats are side tied to a narrow wooden dock here. I once climbed in my dinghy and rowed up the river until I ran into a dam built by a beaver, and the beaver was trying to distract me away from his dam by slapping his tail on the water. Up further are where the waterfalls are, and over here in this open space is where the picnic area is. But it is just an absolute delightful place, and if it's been a rainy winter there, the waterfalls will be really spectacular. All right, let's go back to the maps here again. And just to show you real quickly, there's Stockton that we've been talking about. Here's Madeline. Gull you can't see because it's so small. Here's Michigan. So sailing from here, you sail right down here, and there's Black River, Upper Peninsula, Michigan. Okay, now if you're, let's just say you're anchored up at Rocky, having a good time at that dock, which is probably what would happen if you were actually tied up to the side of it, which you can do, and you want to sail west and still stay in the Apostle chain. So I hope you can see my cursor well enough, but I'm going to leave Rocky, sail south, leave Bear Island to starboard. I'm going to head west. I'm going to go around the northern tip of Sand Island, where the red brick lighthouse is the most picturesque lighthouse in the entire chain. And then I'm going to start heading southwest, and I'm going to leave Eagle Island to port, and I'm going to come all the way down here to Siskiwit Bay, Wisconsin, where there is a harbor and a town called Cornucopia. Cornucopia is the northernmost town in all of Wisconsin. And It's a delightful little place. When we first went there in the early 70s, there was only an old falling down barn and just a wooden dock there. But now there's a full marina that's there. However, if you're going to do that, there's one thing you have to be aware of, is if you're going to do that thing I just showed you, that course, and you go, well, why don't I just go south of Sand Island? That'll cut off some miles, and then I'll go on down here to Siskiwit. Well, in the shortcut, and it's called the Cut, right here at the southern, between mainland and southern Sand Island, there is a sandbar that's 3 feet deep. And if your boat draws more than 3 feet, you're going to run aground. So you need to leave Sand Island to port and come on down to Siskiwit. This is what Cornucopia looks like. I advise that if you're going to go there, and you can get there from any island easily, and reserve a slip or a side tie. It's a full service harbor. It has pump out, water, fuel. There's a few shops in town and a few restaurants. The sailors in the area call Cornucopia the Corny or Corny, and it's just a quaint, it's just an idyllic little Midwestern town and harbor.
Beautiful.
Now, the Apostle Islands, with its unspoiled beauty and great sailing, is why I went back there on 14 different summers and went on 7-day bareboat charters. And I have to tell you, it is just spectacular to pull into an anchorage and you're the only one there. It's tranquil and just gorgeous. And that's not uncommon up there at all. There are so many places to anchor, you can hardly go wrong. Well, in my opinion, I mean, with eagles soaring overhead and the glorious sunrises and sunsets and full moons that illuminate the anchorages, I have to wonder why more people haven't discovered the jewels in the crown of Lake Superior known as the Apostle Islands. Dramatic rock and cave formations, shallow and sandy bottoms for anchoring, uninhabited islands. I mean, I rate the Apostle Islands right up there with the Virgin Islands and the Hawaiian Islands and even the Balearic Islands in the Mediterranean for just an excellent and pleasurable sailing experience. I wanted to throw the slide in real quickly because there was a lightning and thunderstorm several miles out over the lake, and we were anchored, and it was just a light drizzle where we are. So take my cursor here, jumped in the dinghy and rode over here and got right inside this cave. There was a lot of headroom between the dinghy and the cave, and sat and watched that show. And what a show it was too, while we were enjoying our liquid refreshments. There are tour boats and kayak rentals and campsites, campsites almost on every island. And many people will rent kayaks and they will row from island to island and then set up camp there. And you can see another gorgeous day in the Apostle Islands. There's one thing that when charterers are on their last day of the charter, tend to get a little antsy and want to get the boat back. But you can easily get back to either Bayfield or Port Superior from anywhere in the Apostle chain. And in fact, easily you can get back from Cornucopia. So you get to use the whole last day of your charter. And at this latitude in the north, it stays light about till 10 o'clock at night. So you got a lot of time to get that boat back and really enjoy your last day there. I personally would recommend contacting Superior Charters, which is in Port Superior, if you're interested in chartering a boat or even getting a captained charter boat. If you'd like more information about the Apostle Islands, I would recommend going to Amazon.com. There are actually several books written about the Apostle Islands, and maps are even available there. There's one thing you have to be aware of, though. There is no airport in Bayfield, Wisconsin. You have to fly into Duluth, Minnesota, and then drive about an hour and a half to get to Bayfield or Port Superior. You can also get information from the National Park Service, which has maps about the Apostle Islands. Campers use these maps quite a bit, and there's a lot of other information, from the Park Service about the Apostle Islands. Okay, we're almost at the end here, but I warned you we're going to have a quiz. I did call Vanna White. I asked her if she could help me do the quiz, and unfortunately, she turned me down. So we're going to have to just press on by ourselves. 5 questions. You get 5 seconds before the second, and third, fourth, fifth question. So let's start off. Are you ready? Here we go. What island is the only inhabited island? The answer is Madeline. Which island has the haunted lighthouse? The answer is Raspberry Island. Which island has the longest sand spit? That would be Outer Island. Which island is the unofficial smallest island in the world?
Gull Island.
Gull Island.
I remembered one.
Okay. Which island is it? Stockton or Madeline that has Presque Isle Harbor?
Stockton.
And that would be Stockton Island. Oh yeah, I forgot. We got a bonus question for you. What state are the Apostle Islands located in?
Right.
Wait.
Wisconsin.
Whoever said Wisconsin, you're right. Okay, well, there you have it. Those are the Apostle Islands. Just an incredible place to visit and go sailing and enjoy the unspoiled nature there. It truly is North America's best kept secret. And I'd be glad to answer any questions you have. If you have any questions and want to get a hold of me via email, there's my email address. It's robrice@live.com. It's Rob with 2 B's. So I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Okay, I have a question here from a member. Please, have you been to the Isle Royale National Park?
The Isle Royale is quite a bit north. It's north of Grand Marais, Minnesota, and it's on the Minnesota side of the lake. No, I haven't. It's pretty far north, but it's one of my sailing buddies has been up there several times. But it's a big island.
Okay. What company did you say will check out boats?
It's called Superior Charters, like Lake Superior Charters. There used to be a company up there for many years called Sailboats Inc. And they had a large charter operation, but it was out of the Duluth area. I don't think they're in business anymore, but Superior Charters are there. And you can actually go on their website and they have a video and you can follow along and get some actual visuals of what it looks like to sail up there.
What's the water temperature in the summertime?
Well, it's about 60 degrees. I've been out sort of further way offshore and I dove in and I can assure you it wasn't 60 degrees. but as you get into the shallower water,
Yeah.
we oftentimes would just roll over to a dinghy and go swimming, go to a beach and go swimming. So it can get up into the low 70s.
What month did you go? Like,
I would recommend a couple of things here. I would recommend going in July or August because that's a chance where you're in the best months weather-wise. It's the warmest months and the water's the warmest. The one thing though, if you're going to charter a boat, you got to realize that these folks only have about 5 months to make their living because the boats all come out of the water and they sit on the harbor until summer comes back. So if you're going to go, I would recommend chartering the boat 6 months in advance. Otherwise, there may not be any boats available.
okay.
The one that we chartered, you saw, the Jeanneau 48, that had a tri-cabin. So all three of them, the three of us sail together for years now. We get our own cabin and our own head. But we chartered that boat almost 7.5 months in advance because we knew that those tri-cabins are very popular up there and they get snatched up real early.
And did you have it for about a week? Is that a good enough time?
Yeah, seven days. Usually that's pretty normal is to get a 7-day charter.
Okay, I have a comment here. It says, I haven't sailed in the Apostle since the early 80s, so I forgot the island, but I think Stockton. But there was a sand beach that matched any I have seen anywhere in the world, complete with a great blueberry patch above it.
That's Stockton Island.
That sounds nice. A blueberry patch. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The very first time I was up there, we went ashore and we went blueberry picking. They were fresh blueberries, and we saw a few bears and scared them off. But to whoever that is, I just want to say that there's been a lot of changes up there, except for the islands themselves. They're still uninhabited. They're not crowded, and I mean with boats and stuff. But there are some things that have changed, like the charter operation Sailboats Inc. I don't think is in business. Cornucopia, which I talked about, went from nothing to a complete marina. They restored the lighthouse on Raspberry. So there are some changes, but mostly the flavor and charm of the Apostle Islands are very much the same.
What do you do about food and fuel?
Because you don't have to go very far to do that. You can get fuel in the town of La Pointe on Madeline. You can get it in Bayfield, or you can get it at Port Superior. So it's not hard to fuel up. The other is food. You just go to the store, and either one of those places, all three of them, you can go to the grocery store and load up, and away you go.
What about mosquitoes?
That can be an issue at times, but and that's actually a good question. If I was going to charter a boat, we always make sure that there's, they have screens, that all the hatches have screens, and even the main hatch which is normally just equipment that would come with the boat. I think the only other thing that I've ever experienced that was a negative experience was one year we were sailing up from Duluth to the Apostle Islands because a friend of mine had his boat there. And it was one of those days, a real strange day. It got really hot. And then all of a sudden, black flies hatched. Little black flies like to bite you. And so that was my only bad experience about it. But I think anywhere up in the Midwest, you just have to be prepared properly with, with some spray if you're going to go walking around. And if you're on the boat, just make sure you have your screens up.
There's another comment here. You can charter out of Duluth too for a little more adventure in the bigger part of the lake. Main limitation was scheduling pump out stops rather than fuel or water stops.
Oh.
Absolutely. You have to plan that ahead. The places that you could pump out. Did you say that this individual was sailing up from Duluth into the islands?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've done that for about 10 different times. The first stop we would always make is at Cornucopia, where you can pump out right there. And then you can spend at least, let's assume, I don't know how many people are on the boat, but assume you could do 1 or 2 days easily out in the islands, and then you could come into either La Pointe or into Bayfield and pump out there, and we go right back out to the islands. And we've done that.
Which one's your favorite island?
Boy, that's tough. I'd have to say Stockton is.
Stockton.
Yeah, it's got these 3 beautiful bays and a huge island, and a lot, you can go hiking, swimming, kayaking, you can do all you want.
That's so neat. I mean, that's one of my favorite things about going to Santa Cruz is seeing the rays and the foxes and all the wildlife. But here you could see all kinds of different, like beavers. I've never seen that, or a bald eagle. I think I've only seen that at the zoo. So that sounds charming, just to see all the wildlife from that area.
Don't forget the black bears.
And the black bears. I've come across black bears before. That was really scary because I've never seen one before. That was pretty close.
Yeah. They're pretty docile. They there's rarely any trouble. If you just make a lot of noise, they don't like it and they leave.
Are there black bears on the islands?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Do they swim from island to island?
Mostly wait till it freezes over, and then they can walk anywhere they want.
Oh, wow.
Those a lot of those sea caves that you saw, in one part of closer to the main, actually on the mainland of Wisconsin, at the very northern tip of it, which is right where the Apostle Islands are, they have these incredible ice caves, and you should see they're spectacular. And a lot of people come from all over the world. They'll walk about a mile out onto the lake to get to where these caves are, and they're pretty spectacular.
Oh, Rob, I was going to mention if you can stop the share screen, that way you fill up on our screen here. There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, I saw those photos when I was looking up an image to send out to the members via email. I saw those icicles going over the caves. They're so pretty.
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic, and you can get inside those caves.
And ice skating bears on top
Not
of
what I heard of.
it.
But the whole idea is that a lot of people aren't aware of the Apostle Islands. I mean, you don't have to fly thousands of miles to get this incredible sailing. And by the way, Ms. Hale, you can go in there in a powerboat. They don't discriminate.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I saw some power boats there as I was viewing. Thank you.
I don't know much about chartering a powerboat, but I'm almost positive you can do that.
Yeah.
What's the nearest yacht club in that area?
Well, there's only one yacht club really, and that's over at the La Pointe in Madeline. And it's been there for, I don't know, 150 years, 200, whatever.
Oh, neat.
It's been there a long time. But I think the thing that's really, if you live in Southern California and you're used to crowds and traffic, and we go hiking around Santa Barbara, and there's always lots of people on the trail and things. You go over there and you anchor in a bay, you might have the whole island to yourself.
Wow.
That
Yeah.
is amazing.
That sounds really great. I'm gonna put that on my list of places to go.
Right.
Well, and
Good
a lot of
idea.
people love to go up there and kayak. We see them
Yeah.
all the time. They get their camping gear and they'll kayak from one island to the next, and they love it.
Oh, that sounds beautiful. Definitely a bucket list.
Well, and if you don't necessarily want to sail or boat, you can oftentimes find a cabin to rent on Madeline,
Okay, Madeline.
which is populated but also pretty.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think who I want to go with now. My daughter or my husband or the family. Sounds too fun.
Well, you can take tour boats too. They'll take you out through the islands. The tour boats can take you to different islands, to different lighthouses.
How about are there little restaurants and stuff where,
Oh yeah, all these. I mean, and in the inhabited parts, yes.
yeah. Okay.
And what's the name of the park that they named?
The-
You
the-
said
I'm
the
sorry.
islands are all a part of a park, a national park?
It's called the Apostle Islands National Lakeshore.
National Lakeshore. Okay, thank you.
I can tell you two quick side stories about it. The company that was owned by Sailboats Inc. that we chartered from out of Duluth for many years, the owner of it passed away a couple of years ago, but he was instrumental in preventing the use of jet skis in the Apostle Islands.
Uh-huh.
And then my two sailing buddies and I were instrumental in getting outboard generators, gas-driven generators, not allowed to be put on the docks of the Apostle Islands for people running it for auxiliary power. If you wanted to put it on your boat or it was inside your boat, but you cannot put those generators on the docks or the shore.
Uh-huh. Keeps it very nice and clean and quiet, huh?
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
You don't want to be listening to that all day.
Right.
Right.
What kind of fish are there?
88 different species. The most popular two are the northern pike, which is a fish that's got some pretty sharp teeth, kind of long and narrow, very tasty. It's probably the most popular one. There's another one called a muskie. This muskellunge, I think it's pronounced.
A muskie
Much bigger fish.
Mm.
and lake trout.
Yep, trout is very popular. Perch.
whitefish.
I don't know if there's bass up there. There probably is, but I don't know that.
So neat.
Our football team was the Muskies, but we were not from Muskegon. We were Muskingum in Ohio.
Well, I'm going to put together another presentation. I hope you guys will join me on that one on sailing in northern Lake Michigan. It's called the Charlevoix. And it's very similar to this in the sense that there's all this unspoiled beauty and the sailing is just delightful. And so I'm going to work on that one next.
Good. All right. Let me know when you're ready.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. I really appreciated the opportunity to share this. And I just did this because it's a place that I love so much. I just like to see other people go up there and enjoy it.
Absolutely.